Brittney Griner is expected to appear in court today to tell her side of the story. Earlier this month, she pleaded guilty on drug charges and could face 10 years in prison. This comes as her family and teammates are pushing the Biden administration to negotiate her release. So for more on this, I want to bring in CBS News foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata, who is covering this story for us from London. So she is due to appear in court today. Charlie, she's already pleaded guilty. What are we expecting from the court appearance today? And have we seen her at all this morning so far?
Not yet. There are cameras outside the courtroom. She hasn't arrived yet, as far as we can tell. Cameras have been banned inside the courtroom, including inside the lobby. So it's unclear what we will see or hear from Brittney Griner at all today. Now, in terms of what we expect, her defense team will present essentially mitigating factors to what she's already pleaded guilty to. And there will be other members called on her defense in order to put this case forward. But she pleaded guilty last week. Really, it's seen as an effort to expedite whatever sort of diplomatic negotiations can take place, because according to the Russian government, anyway, they cannot get involved in any part of this legal process while the legal process is underway. So, in a manner of speaking, the sooner this trial is taken care of, the sooner the sentencing takes place, the faster we can get those international negotiations underway.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because that's what I was going to ask you about, because it seemed like everyone was waiting. You know, she pleaded guilty sort of right away, no fighting, and everyone was waiting to get to this stage so they can move on to the stage where hopefully they can get her home. So to that point, a U.S. negotiator is traveling to Moscow for Griner's case. What more do we know about this negotiator and kind of the role that this person will play?
Yeah, well, this is Bill Richardson. So he's a former Arizona governor, former UN representative. And he has become, he works in the private sector, but really with the behest of the White House. Jake Sullivan last week said that they'd been in contact with him. Now, his office won't confirm this, but there are reports that he is on board to try to take care of this negotiation. He has past history in successful negotiations. He helped free another American, former U.S. Marine, Trevor Reed, a number of months ago. There's another, if you want to call it, hostage, which is how certainly Brittney Griner's team is playing her out to be in this situation. Former Marine Paul Whelan, who is serving 16 years in Russia on an espionage charge. So if you want to put it that way, it might be a sort of package deal in order to negotiate the release of both these American citizens.
So can we talk about what the options could be in order to get her out?
Yes, well, the options for her are none. She has no options. I mean, really, it's going to be down to whether or not there is a high-level negotiation and perhaps a prisoner swap between the United States and Russia. And there has been some talk that they may be looking, the Russians may be interested, this is in Russian media, I should point out, may be interested in getting so-called the merchant of death.
Yes.
His name is Victor Bout, and he's an arms dealer, and he's currently serving prison time in the United States. Now, there are American diplomats who say, well, it isn't a like for like. You know, you've got Brittney Griner, who is arrested on alleged cannabis charges or drug charges. That is not the same sort of level of indictment that we would be talking about with Victor Bout. However, if you enter Paul Whelan into the case, well, then we may have two Americans who are now in, well, certainly in Russian custody, let's put it that way, who may be part of a package deal in terms of a prisoner swap. But once again, we have to point out this cannot take place until the judicial process has played out. Now, right now, the Russians say that they will hold Brittney Griner until December of this year. Her lawyers, however, are saying they're hoping this might be wrapped up as soon as August. That will have to do with what we're going to see today and what we're going to see in the coming weeks.
So we should remind people, we actually brought this up earlier, that Paul Whelan's brother is actually going to be on Red and Blue at 6 o'clock. If you want to get a little more, if you want to learn a little bit more about what his family's going through and how he ended up in the position that he's in. So this is something that I have been sort of playing around in my mind. You know, the administration calls Brittney Griner's detainment a wrongful detainment. She pleaded guilty. As I was looking into it, it seemed to me that the issue may have been that she sort of overcharged Can you just talk a little bit more about like the what she's been charged with and why the administration would say she's wrongfully detained if she pleaded guilty to actually bringing this substance in?
Right. Well, it's a very important point, Anne-Marie, because she was arrested back in February on charges essentially of sort of mass distribution, of smuggling drugs, essentially. So it's the highest level that you can possibly be found guilty of in Russia. So this wasn't sort of, personal use or personal possession, which would carry a much lower charge. And what they found, according to Russian officials, is cannabis oils inside her baggage, as you might be seeing there. So the reason that they believe that Brittney Griner may be used as a political pawn is the fact that they trumped up the charges to the very highest level that they possibly could, and then she pleaded guilty. So for her now to have done that, I know it sounds perverse to have pleaded guilty for something that you're being charged of, but this is where those mitigating circumstances will come in. Her defense says, okay, yes, she did that, but it was no intention of, it wasn't a large amount of so-called alleged drugs. She had no intention to distribute those drugs, and those will be the mitigating factors. So again, perversely, she pleaded guilty, but I think in many minds, she's innocent.
Yeah, and I wonder if, on sort of the Russian side of things, if there is, and as you point out, this is only in Russian media, if there is a possibility of a request for a prisoner exchange, Brittney Griner, for a major arms dealer, maybe it strengthens their argument to say, well, we'll swap a drug dealer for an arms dealer, even if it is the case of her being tremendously overcharged.
It's exactly that, because they have to go for the highest possible sentencing, the highest level of guilt.
Yeah.
And there's a 99% chance of anybody in Russia being convicted. So once you're in court, you're pretty much going to jail. And that would certainly be the case with Brittney Griner. So it may be that the Russians are saying, well, let's get this to the highest level as we possibly can. But again, from an American judicial standpoint, and certainly from the White House and others, it's not a like-for-like trade. Somebody, a professional basketball player who is busted on a negligible drug possession charge is not the same as the merchant of death, Victor Bout, who's been trading arms and other things. He's been involved in relationships with terrorist organizations who would do Americans harm. These are the very high charges, and it's not the same sort of charges that you might have a trade-off for an NBA star who is found in possession, possibly, of some cannabis oil.
Yeah. Charlie D'Agata, thank you very much.
Thank you.